Hello, this is Mr. Bryant with a lovely solving quadratic equations by factoring um, lesson. So what we're going to do here is we have 3x squared equals 15x. What you want to do is get everything on one side of the equation, all right? So I'm going to move this over here for you. And what we want to do is, let's move this 15x to the left side. So everything's on one side so we can factor it. So I'm going to subtract 15x from both sides because you always do the opposite if you want to get something to the other side of the equal sign. So you can't take a 15x from x squared. So you write this side by side. And on the right side, you're left with nothing, so it goes away. So now, notice this cannot be done by the x method, which we will be using in a little bit. All right? So with that, we want to actually factor out in front what these two terms have alike, their greatest common factor. So 3 can go into itself and 15, so that's going to come out. Also, both of these have an x. This one has two x's being multiplied, this has one. So I can pull one out that they have in common. Once I've pulled out everything that they have in common, I'm going to open a parenthesis up and then write what's left over. So 3x times what would bring me back to this? Well, just an x, because 3x times x is 3x squared. 3 times what is negative 15? Well, another negative 5. I don't need an x because 3x times 5 is 15x. So you don't have to have another x on this one. You close it, equal to 0. Now we're almost done. Let me make some space down here. We're going to separate this to be 3x equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. And our last step is to solve each one of these by themselves. So we're going to divide this one and this one by 3. And we're going to add 5 on both sides of this one. That way we get the x by itself on each of these equations. Remember, you can always pause this tape in order to see what I've done. Let me move my head. So again, you can always pause the tape and write this down. All right, so now we have also 4x squared minus 5x equals 21. So what we want to do is first move over that 21. So minus 21, minus 21. But you can't take 21 from anything on the left side of this equation. So what you want to do is just write it all side by side. 4x squared minus 5x minus 21 is equal to 0 because that cancels. All right? So now this is a trinomial that has a quadratic term. So we know that we can do the x method. So remember, you want to multiply the first times the last. That's going to give you negative 84. You write the middle term underneath with the sign, negative 5. Now you need to think of two numbers that are going to multiply to be negative 84. When you add them, you get negative 5, okay? And you can use your calculator or you can use your brain, either or, to help you figure this out. Just keep thinking of numbers that multiply by 84. If you can't think any, then you divide. Start with 2, then 3, then 4, and write them down so you can keep track of it. So, but I've already figured out the two you need to save time. You're going to use 7 and 12. Because 7 times 12 is 84. And if you put the negative on the 12, you'll get a negative 5 when you add them. Now again, you can try negative 7 plus 12, but you won't get a negative 5. All right? So with that, we're going to bring over the two numbers that we found that work for both scenarios, times and addition. And we're going to write them over here on top. On top of what you say? On top of a fraction bar. Because we're going to take the first number that's in the trinomial and put it underneath each of these fraction bars. All right? Now again, you can pause the tape because I'm going to erase some of this. So now, we're going to simplify this. It's already simplified, so we can move on. This one is simplified to negative 3 over 1. And now whatever variable you have, we're going to throw that on the bottom of each one. So now, we're going to write 4x plus 7 is equal to 0. And we make a little wall. 1x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now we need to solve each of these for x. This is a two-step, minus 7 minus 7. So 4x is equal to negative 7. And then divide both by 4. So x is equal to 7 over 4, negative 7 over 4. Notice that 7 over 4 and negative 7 over 4 are the same except they're different signs. So once you simplify these, you already have your solution. It's just the opposite of what's over here. Same thing here. If I add 3 over, I get x is equal to 3. Wasn't that the opposite of negative 3? Yeah, of course. All right. So now again, you can pause the tape and rewind. And again, the main thing is we're finding two solutions to this equation. So if I plug in negative 7 over 4 in for both these x's, this left side will equal 0. If I plug in 3 for this x and this x, this left side will equal 0. Okay? So again, if I just erased, well, I did just erase the board, you can rewind and pause right before I erase it.
All right, Sam, this is the last call for the flu shot.
All right, now what we're dealing with is if you already have the solutions and you want to figure out what the quadratic they came from was. So these are the solutions to something that's already been solved, or we're working backwards. So one thing you can do is go ahead and set two sets of parentheses up, okay? If you have just whole numbers, all you're going to do is write the opposite of what number it was. So it was a positive 3, we'll do x minus 3. So negative 5, we'll do x plus 5 equals to 0. So now all you got to do is multiply these two binomials by FOILing. So x times x is x squared, x times 5 is 5x, negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. These come together in the middle because they're like terms. So x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0 is the equation that these two are a solution for. All right? Again, I know I went through that quick, but just rewind and listen to me again, and I will help you out. Repetition, that's the key. So now we want to do this other solution over here. We have 7 over 2 and negative 4 over 3. Don't be scared because you see fractions. It's going to be all right. We can actually plug this information right into the same setup. It's just that you have to plug in a little extra, okay? So we're still going to set up our two parentheses and equal to 0. Now this time, notice how on the last one when we're doing the x method, on the bottom we threw in the x's. So we're just going to write these in here, but you're still going to flip the sign from the bottom up. 2x minus 7 and 3x plus 4. Now we're going to FOIL this, and we're already done. It's just the only difference is from this and the first example is that we have to put the 2x first, the 3x first, and then we're still going to do the opposite of the number on top. Same thing, just a little bit extra, okay? So let's go and FOIL and knock this out. 6x squared plus 8x plus negative 21x minus 28. All right? Notice these two can go together again, so that's negative 13x minus 28, 6x squared in front equals 0. You're done because you figured out the equation that these two solutions came from. And again, if you were to plug 7 over 2, not the x, 7 over 2 back in for both these x's, this whole left side will equal 0. Same thing with the negative 4 over 3. If you plug it in here, you're going to get 0. All right? Thank you for your time.